Victor was very helpful to me, not only...
Dr. Hruby is a different one. He differs from all of them.
Our story is a little bit different while we can both remember how we first met.
Professor Victor J. Hruby is Regents Professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at the University of Arizona. Dr. Hruby was born in Valley City, North Dakota, and received his BS and MS with A. William Johnson at the University of North Dakota. He then went to Cornell University, where he received his PhD with A.T. Blomquist, and then was an instructor at Cornell University Medical College with Vincent Duvigneau, Nobel laureate. He moved to the University of Arizona in 1968 as an assistant professor.
Blomquist told Duvigneau, this famous scientist who had gotten a Nobel Prize for his synthesis, his isolation, structure determination, total synthesis, and putting in clinical medicine, the first peptide hormone, oxytocin. And anyway, he wanted to solve the structure of acetone and oxytocin, and Blomquist told him that I could do it. So I decided to go and give it a try, and I changed fields again and went into what is now called chemical biology. But he was in the biochemistry department, and so I learned biochemistry by teaching it and by doing it.
Professor Hruby's research has been primarily in the chemistry, conformation-biological activity relationships, and molecular mechanisms of information transduction and of molecular diseases associated with peptide hormones and neurotransmitters, and the receptors that modulate health, disease, and human behavior. Victor Hruby has received numerous awards and honors, including a Guggenheim Fellowship, the Alan E. Pierce Award, a Senior Humboldt Fellowship, and the American Chemical Society Arthur C. Cope Scholar Award. He was awarded a Doctor of Science honoris causa from the Free University of Brussels and was named Regents Professor at the University of Arizona in 1989. Additional awards include the American Chemical Society Ralph F. Hirschman Award, the Jacob Javits Neuroscience Award, the NIH Merit Award, Sommer Award, Arizona Innovator of the Year, and the Goodman Scientific Excellence and Mentorship Award.
This remembrance is from Clark W. Smith, PhD, who is the chairman of the board at Proteus in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and was a graduate student in Professor Hruby's group from 1970 to 1973.
Victor could be persuaded to play basketball with the group. He had a great jump shot from the top of the key, but he was so light his shot could be thwarted simply by pushing him sideways about a foot. I'm sorry that I won't be able to attend, but it sounds like a great program.
How many of you actually know how to put it on an ether fire? I've actually done it. Anybody here? Have you actually ever put out an ether fire? Well, of course, Ruben. He probably put out 100 like I did, right?
The Hruby group is also developing new synthetic methodologies for the assembly of multimeric ligands for the detection and treatment of pain, cancer, and other diseases. Professor Hruby has published over 1,200 articles, reviews, chapters, commentaries, and editorials, and has over 25 patents and patent filings.
Research. I was very interested in working with people in other fields, especially in biology and medicine. And so I came here because this was a fairly new university and a new medical school, and medical school is right next door. And so from the time I came here, I started working with people in the medical school and in the biology departments. With my first collaborator over there was Professor Mac Hadley, and we collaborated then for over 30 years and started this field now that's a pretty big field, melanotropins, melanocortin receptors. And it's become a very important field because it's one of the primordial hormones for animal life and for humans too. And so that we got started on that, and then about a little later we got started on the other big area of our research, which is pain research with Tom Burks and Hank Yamamura over at the medical school, and then later other people that joined us in this.
And many, many years ago, I had the honor and the privilege to begin work at the University of Arizona in the College of Medicine while I was a postdoctoral fellow for Dr. Tom Burks. To my surprise, Dr. Burks introduced me to somebody in the Department of Chemistry, Professor Victor Hruby. And it was quite remarkable. We started to interact with the students and the postdoctoral fellows in Dr. Hruby's laboratory. And here it is, 32 years later, that I am still working and collaborating with Professor Hruby.
We know that some professors' attitude is, you are a graduate student. If you are worthy of a PhD, you should be able to do whatever you need to do without my help. If you can't, maybe you should rethink your career direction. Sometimes, even good students need help to get over a deficit in background, confidence, or both. Regardless of effort and intelligence, the more they try, the worse they do. That was me. I failed the first 5 cumulative exams, meaning I needed to pass 6 of the next 7 not to flunk out of the program. Victor and his postdocs took time from their evenings and weekends to help me study.
So there's some personal attributes that I think are very important. And one of these is curiosity. So Victor is very curious about everything, and the scientific things that he's curious about encompass not only his field of expertise, but much more widely. So not just chemistry, but biology. And he wants to learn from people that know something that he doesn't know, but he's very critical in his learning. He makes sure that it makes sense, and he questions the person in depth.
And if there's one thing that I can think about why this collaboration has lasted for all these years, it is Professor Hruby's infectious enthusiasm to discover new knowledge and to advance science. And he creates enthusiasm in everybody around him. And we've totally enjoyed the exchange of ideas and knowledge that have occurred over all these years.
And all of these stuff, made our group fairly famous fairly early. So I got to travel all over the world, and also, most importantly, I attracted students from all over the world. And this has been very important to me.
So I met in my life a lot of outstanding people in our country, in Russia, here in America, and I think Dr. Hruby, it's possible to separate Dr. Hruby from all of them because of his some special things, and this special thing is he is listening to you. He is not trying to press you. He is trying to make some golden media between what you say and his proposal. So Dr. Hruby is one of the most outstanding scientists in the world.
He was the first president of the APS. He's been a very staunch supporter of the peptide community on study sections and in the literature. And what's fascinating is that his research has tended to go from strength to strength. So I have great admiration for his longevity and his perseverance and his wonderful personality.
Over his outstanding career, he has thousands of scientific publications and citations in his name. But to me, his greatest contribution to science is his many years of service as an outstanding teacher and dedicated educator.
I have always felt that science should be international, and people that come from various parts of the world will come with their own unique perspectives, and I really like that. I like to work with people that think differently than I do, both those in biology and medicine, but also those in chemistry that have different ideas. And so we work together, and I think this has been what I really enjoy the most, is the very interdisciplinary and very broad way in which we think about our problems.
I would say happy birthday, Victor. I know you'll keep going. There's nothing going to slow you down. I just don't see anything. You'll be making peptides forever. So.
People who were different than we were. And I made some kind of a statement about the fact, being the city kid, that Probably one of the biggest problems people had was that they were segregated, that they didn't know people who were other different from them, and that if they actually got to know people and didn't just live in their own little small enclave, they would be better at this whole thing. And from way across the room, I couldn't see who was speaking, but behind 6 other people, the voice comes out loud and clear with, "I completely disagree with that." Those were the first words my dear darling husband ever said to me.
Career. So Pat was always a professor before I was, and so when she came here, she became one of the founders of Pima College, and so she was very busy there. In the meantime, we had 3 children, 3 boys, and we had 1 car. I rode a bicycle, so she had more work to do, basically taking the boys around, first to our babysitters, and then when they went into schools, to school. But more importantly, we developed a partnership that was really fantastic in terms of what we did, because I took sabbatical leave, so we were separated from time to time. Sometimes part of the family was with me, but mainly she was the person who the boys stayed at home while I went someplace else to learn some new things. So without Pat, I could have never had this career, absolutely, because she was so supportive of everything, and she was always, I don't know how we did it, but it was because Pat could do it. That's what I always say. She was so amazing.
So I was asked to host a famous chemistry professor here, and Victor and I and Professor were going to go to dinner at Lud Olson's restaurant. So I made reservations at the restaurant and showed up a few minutes early in my coat and tie, ready to impress this visiting professor. And I was told, "Your table's not quite ready. Can you wait over here?" And so I was waiting. And, after a while, Victor and the famous visiting scientist showed up, and the maitre d' immediately jumped up and said, "Oh, Professor Hruby, your table's ready for you right over here," and escorted us to the table. And it's very clear that Victor's had a big impact wherever he's gone, not just in the laboratory, but in the restaurants of Tucson as well.
Because whenever we talk about movie and actress and actor, you always mention about Katharine Hepburn, how she was a great actress, and Audrey Hepburn. So here are their pictures. So I agree, they are great actresses. But if you don't know who they are, you should spend some more time at movies, because they are very famous, beautiful actresses, Anne Hathaway and Angelina Jolie. So I would like to go to the theater, watch movie. Here are 2 tickets for you and for Mrs. Hruby. Again, congratulations.